Frank, what was your reaction when you heard or saw the end of the Kentucky-Florida game and you knew that you guys were in first place?
Nothing. I was relieved, like I told you guys, that we won earlier that day. And I was actually watching the Alabama game, not the Florida-Kentucky game. And so I was already in my misery. And really nothing. That game didn't do anything for me one way or the other. I didn't watch it. We're not playing either one of those two teams anytime soon. So my emotions are on the next opponent. Always have been, always will be. Rather be in first place February the 6th than 13th place. We've been there, but they're both irrelevant. They don't call you a failure first week of February, and they don't call you a success first week in February. So,
Coach, although you're not taking too much stock in where you guys are now, it does have to help, I imagine, the guys in the locker room, just from their mental attitude standpoint, that, hey, for once, this program is in a great position, and we control everything now. The keys are in our hands.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's a lot easier to manage a team when you're winning games than it is when you're losing games. But there's different dynamics that come into play with winning than they do when losing. When you're losing games, you're trying to keep everyone's confidence in place and people upbeat. But in reality, no one really pays attention, so you don't have to worry about any outside distractions. When you're winning, unfortunately, all of a sudden you've got a lot more friends than you did when the other was taking place, and you got to figure out how to keep those other voices and messages kind of away from what you're doing. But at the same time, it's, winning games breeds confidence as long as you stay grounded and you stay consistent with what you're trying to do. And I think our guys have done that. I really do. I said earlier today on a radio show I did that, beating Monmouth earlier this year, that roller coaster of a game against a very good team, I think gave this team a lot of confidence that day. And we've continued to build from that point forward.
PJ and Dwayne both said that this team hasn't played its best game yet. What game do you feel like came the closest, and what does this team need to do to kind of take that next step and play its best game of the year?
I don't know, maybe to answer your question, I never thought about it, maybe the Auburn game, because I thought we were pretty good defensively, and we obviously made a lot of shots. That's a pretty good combination there. We've had games where we've been real good defensively and just okay on offense, and we've had a couple games where we've been not very good defensively, but we've played well enough offensively. But I agree with them. Our room for growth is tremendous. You got to understand some of the inconsistencies that we've had with our roster. So that means every time you have inconsistencies with a roster, roles, minutes, all those things are kind of moved around a little bit. We finally, here for the last 3-4 games, we've had some stability with our lineups and rotations and who's playing and what we need from each player. And, hopefully we can continue to keep that in place. If we do, then the team can become the best that it can become, because it's being real good is everyone accepting what they're doing and being comfortable within what they're doing. So you got to have stability in the people that are available and how the team plays, and we've had it here for a little while, so hopefully it can continue.
Frank, the game at Alabama last year, big three-point game from the Tide. How have they changed from last year to this year, and what's the biggest matchup problem you see from the tape?
They're big, strong, and physical. I mean, they've replaced Obasahan with Corbin Collins, who's built like Obasahan, but he's a different player. He's more of a jump shooter, you know, where Obasahan was just an absolute bulldog off the dribble. And now Ingram, their point guard, you know, you're talking about a 6'4", 6'5" kid that I saw them play live back in November. It's one of those tournaments that everyone's in, and, you know, middle of the afternoon, I'm sitting in my house and I watched him. And he looked like a guy that's trying to figure out, you know, as a first-time, full-time point guard, you know, playing high-level basketball on what Avery wanted from him. When I'm watching him on film now, he looks like a guy that has pretty good handle on what's being expected from him. And but they're big, shot blocking, physical at the rim. They're physical on the perimeter. Key is a size matchup with skill and gets to the foul line. Riley Norris is tough as nails, and he's become one of the better perimeter shooters in our league. I mean, you can't lose him because he's going to make threes. I just think that they're very big and very physical. Avery's done a heck of a job. I don't know why they don't get more credit for how good they are as a team. You know, it's that old SEC mystique once again. You know, they were in any other league with their numbers and their wins, and people be raving about how good they are. Instead, they're like a secret in our league, but they're good. I heard someone say that they get destroyed on the road. I wish they would have watched the Georgia game. If I'm not mistaken, they beat Georgia 20 at Georgia. Too many people have done that in my 5 years here.
Mike was in here after the game the other day, and he talked about how the past month has been tough because he's just not used to playing games at this level every 3 or 4 days. How does a first-year player get through that, especially playing the amount of minutes he's playing?
Yeah, that's the hard thing with freshmen. You know, and that's why I told you guys the other day, if he had been pouting or moping or whining, I'd taken him out of the lineup. But he hasn't. I think he's been great. Hasn't played great, but I think his demeanor, his approach, his desire have been good. And that's why I continue to throw him out there, and I continue to ask him to do more, because he's not running away from it. He's just trying to figure it out. I don't like speaking for kids. That's why I love for you guys to ask them the questions. But I don't think he's ever had to compete so hard in practice and in games for such an extended period of time. That's no different than every other freshman. The difference is that he's being asked to play 25 minutes a game. Those other guys are playing 8 minutes a game. And that's a bigger burden and a bigger responsibility. And he's earned the right to do that. But like I said, I think he's doing everything he can. I really hope that second half against Georgia gives him a little life coming into the home stretch here, a little confidence, because I thought he played real well in the second half. I hope that helps him and encourages him. His teammates have been great with him, just positive and continuing to believe in him because just like me, they're at practice every day. They see his resolve. They see his approach, his never crumbling to whether it's me being down his neck about something or a negative play. He's never crumbled, and I think the guys respect the heck out of that because they were all freshmen once upon a time.
Coach, now that this team is on top of the SEC, what do you think is going to take for this team to stay on top of the conference, especially with these next 5 games coming up? As the end of the month approaches, you mentioned consistency on the roster, but what else do you think this team needs in order to stay on top of this conference?
We can't worry about that. Our approach has been for 5 years, let's be the best that we can be today. And we can't sit around and look at conference standings and say, we're up top, let's hold on for dear life. And we start worrying about that, then we're not controlling what we need to control, which is our approach every single day. Just that, not worry. We didn't worry about being in last place 5 years ago. We worried about being better today. We can't worry about being in first place in 2017. We got to worry about being better today. And when we get through today's practice, and we got to figure out a way to go play against Alabama and play the best we can, because that's what it's going to take to win that game. And just stay in the moment. Just stay in the moment. Stay grounded to what's allowed us to get to where we're at, which is staying in the moment, not getting wrapped up on outside perception or what you think. Now, I don't mean you, but someone else thinks, or whether we played good or played bad, or whether we're first or last. All that to us has been irrelevant in the past. We need to stay grounded to who we are.
Frank, you've talked about in the past how if, as regarding the outside noise, that if you and the coaches don't tell these players, somebody else is going to say that. Is this one of those situations where you and the staff have to even step it up a little more, or do you rely on the seniors to kind of keep that club grounded, because they're experiencing a lot of this for the first time too?
It lived it last year. Pete, let's remember now. We played Kentucky on, I want to say it was February 15th. The winner had sole possession of first place. And we obviously, I'm not going to say we didn't handle things right. We went through things last year. I think that those guys that were here last year really, really learned a lot from the month of February last year. I really do. Does that mean we win games this year? No. We might end up losing the same games that we lost last year. Who knows? What I hope is that as coaches, that we can continue to deliver a message that resonates in the heads of our guys, and that the guys in the locker room that have been through it stay grounded and stay focused in on what matters. The biggest disappointment that you can have right now is not losing a game. We all understand that comes with when you stand up and you go play, there's a chance you're going to lose. So we understand that. The biggest disappointment that happens on teams that are being successful is when somebody lets the team down. When you get in this deep into a season and you've worked so hard and sacrificed so much to get into this part of the season, you can't have a distraction. You can't have someone making the wrong decision at 5 points. You can't have the wrong decision academically. You can't have the wrong, a guy worked up about his personal feelings because he thinks he should play more. Those are things that should have been cleaned up by now and don't need to surface now. That's the teams that separate in February are the ones that handle those things better than the others.
Coach, earlier you talked about kind of the consistency and some of the cohesiveness, about this team over the last, couple of weeks. What does it say about this club and its true potential and how good you guys are when you look at PJ and Sin, when they're both in the starting lineup, you guys haven't lost a game?
I hope that continues. I hope they both keep playing. They're both real good players. I've told you guys since the first time we met back in whenever it was that I really like this team. I like the demeanor. I like their commitment to one another. I love the way the older guys have tried to lead. I love the way the younger guys have been willing to accept leadership, but not back away from adding their personality into the mix. I don't think our guys are scared of the moment. I think our guys embrace the moment. If you ask me that question on March the 14th or whatever day that is, and those two guys have played every game between now and then, and they have not lost or we have not lost, then that means that we just had a special run. But let's hope we can figure out a way to win one more with both of those guys on the court, and then we'll deal with the day after that.
Frank, I know it's not rare for other coaches in different sports to admire other people's work and try to take little things and try to apply it to themselves. I mean, you were up at Northeastern from 2000 to 2004. Patriots won 2 Super Bowls over there. 10 years later, they're still doing the same. I mean, what is it about anything with Belichick maybe that you see and you kind of apply it to what you're doing? Because, I mean, it's incredible what they're doing up there.
Someone asked, I watched his press conference today, and I guess someone asked something along the lines of about Tom Brady being better this year or whatever it may be because of the whole suspension or whatever. You know, everyone always thinks that it's you do more because you dislike somebody, and it doesn't work that way. And I thought his answer was what they're about. It says for anyone to think that Brady worked harder this year is being disrespectful to what he did the first 16 years he's been around here. You know, it's who he is every day, every practice, every game. And that's who they are. And it's been unbelievable. I pay attention. I can't stand the Patriots, but I respect the heck out of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. You know, and I'm married to a Patriots fan, and I got a daughter born in Boston, so she now loves the Patriots. And I got to sit at home and actually pump my fists and act like I enjoy watching them win. But you know, but no, that's the funny side. As a coach, I respect the heck out of what those guys do. They don't. There's no me guys. Even Tom Brady, you can say he's the greatest of all time. Does he come across as a me guy to you? Is he a self-promoter? Is he out there kind of promoting himself? That guy, watch his interviews. He doesn't say a word about his performances. He speaks about his coaches and his teammates. That's all he talks about. That's who they are. That's what I watch. That's what I pay attention to. It's no surprise they're so successful. And anyone that ever deviates from that unselfish approach doesn't last in that organization. It's all about the New England Patriots. It's all about the next game, the next. Someone asked a question today, and I guess Belichick's answer was, you know, as great as today is, we're 5 weeks behind for next year. You don't think that's being in the moment? You know, and we think that's a joke. That's who they are. That's how they think. That's how they approach things. That's why they have the success that they have. They don't get wrapped up on what could be. They wrapped up on the only thing we all control, which is today. And then their whole organization, unselfish, class. You know, they win. They don't promote themselves. They don't run around banging themselves on the chest when they catch a first down ball. You know, it's about the next play, the next play. Someone who makes a tackle, they don't have a dance that they perform in the backfield. You know, they tackle you, they get up, they go line up, they make the next play. That's the way things should be.
Coach, you mentioned that there's no finality to February 6th and where you are in the standings. So with this team, in terms of peaking towards the end of the season, where are you at in this journey compared to what you thought in November, and what's it going to take to continue to get there as you approach the spring?
Yeah, I'm just happy with where we're at right now. Back in November, I was trying to get through November. I wasn't sitting around saying, well, in February, my whole career, I've really worked real hard at trying to get my teams to play the best basketball that they can possibly play at the end of the year. I'll share this that I shared with our team yesterday, that, you know, I told them yesterday, 4 years ago, we didn't win a whole lot in January. We didn't win a whole lot at the beginning of February, but we won at the end of the year. We won coming down the stretch, and we won in the conference tournament because we played our best basketball, irrelevant of what our record was, irrelevant as to what others thought our team was. We need to stay in that same place right now. And I'm just trying to get through today and keep our guys excited so they understand. It's hard because of these gadgets. It's hard to communicate with kids these days because no one. I deal with my children at my house. They're on these things all the time. So they're not trained to have to listen. Unfortunately, when we're on the court in the middle of a game, we don't text and we don't use social media. We have to actually talk and listen. And kids are being trained to not listen because they don't speak, and they communicate through text and social media. So it's my whole challenge every day when you got so many first-year guys is I don't have that issue with Sindarius. I can talk to Derek Scott for 2 straight hours, and Sindarius is there, and Dwayne's there. They know everything I told Derek Scott because they've been through it for 4 years. Those other guys, if I don't look them dead in their eyes and say their name, chances are that they don't listen to a single word that comes out of my mouth. It's not their fault. It's what society has trained them to be. It takes time. And so my challenge is today to maybe get one of those guys to listen a little bit more. So when we play tomorrow, we have less breakdowns.
Kind of off topic, but you mentioned after the Georgia game, you gave a lot of credit to Matt Figger and his scout and wanting to play zone. You let him coach the Costa Rica trip, serve as kind of an acting head coach. How have you kind of seen him grow over the course of this year and you know, a potential stepping stone job later on, maybe a head coaching job later on?
Yeah, it's, you know, I try to do everything in my life starting with one word, which is honesty. And he is honest as the day is long. And once you get, you know, I go through those 4 things that I talk about to our players all the time, which you're trying to get to love. So you go honesty, to loyalty, loyalty, to trust, trust, to love. And you can't get to love unless you go through the first 3 steps. Well, he's honest, and he's loyal, and you can trust him. And now our relationship involves love, as if we were family. So I have an unbelievable amount of trust in his voice, as I do with our whole staff. You know, Perry, it was his scout, the Georgia game. So Perry was connected, which is how we do things. The coach in charge of the scout is directly connected as to what the other team is trying to do to attack us, and make sure that defensively we have the matchups that we spoke about having before the game. That's that person's job. Matt's job on games that he does not have scout is to be the voice on the bench that recommends things to me. I can't have 3 people screaming 3 different things at me at the same time, or else I'm going to send them out of the locker room. You know, it's Bruce, you know, Bruce and Perry, their jobs are to recommend stuff to Matt. And then Matt's voice is the one that I listen to. When I'm standing up and looking that way and I hear a voice behind me, that's the voice that resonates in my head. And it's the only way I can think. I can't think if I got 3 different people speaking to me at the same time. And that's where, you know, and guys have to be, you can't coach and be thin-skinned. Heck, I mean, if you're going to coach and you're going to worry about the head coach overruling you or not wanting to listen to you, you can't do it. You might as well do something else for a living, you know. And that's where you got to have rock solid staff. He just stayed in my ear about going zone, and just stayed in my ear. And I get real stubborn with our defense sometimes, and call it my downfall. But that stubbornness has also helped us become the best defensive team in the country. So. But I'm in love with our defense, and I'm committed to it, and I believe in our players within our defense. But that doesn't mean that your assistants don't have to stay in your ear to get you to open up your mind sometimes. And he did that against Georgia, and obviously it helped us win. You got to have your staff. If your staff is full of people that agree with everything I say, then it's just a matter of time before they get a new head ball coach in here. You got to have a staff that's willing to communicate and tell you what they think. If you don't, you need a new staff or you're going to have a new job. It's one or the other.